to speak to a symposium at the University of Toronto, and I said, UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. On Earth at this present time, and at least two of them probably working with the United States government. The other species that I learned about not too long ago was called the tall whites. To become spiritual beings and practice the one tenet that the world's major religions have in common, and that is the Golden Rule.
Savoir que ceux qui nous observent de loin sont inquiets. J'ai vu et entendu et écouté plusieurs des dirigeants d'autres planètes. Ils sont très inquiets parce qu'ils s'interrogent sur la voie que l'Union européenne va poursuivre. Et donc il faut rassurer et les Européens et ceux qui nous observent de plus loin.
Der Brexit besorgt und verwirrt Europa. So sehr, dass EU-Kommissionspräsident Jean-Claude Juncker im EU-Parlament einige sehr merkwürdige Sätze sagte. Die sorgen jetzt für Aufsehen. Auf Französisch klingen sie so.
Il faut savoir que ceux qui nous observent de loin sont inquiets. J'ai vu et entendu et écouté plusieurs des dirigeants d'autres planètes. Ils sont très inquiets parce qu'ils s'interrogent sur la voie que l'Union européenne va poursuivre. Et donc il faut rassurer et les Européens et ceux qui nous observent de plus loin.
Übersetzt sagt Juncker hier, Sie müssen wissen, dass jene, die uns von weitem beobachten, beunruhigt sind. Ich habe gesehen und gehört, dass Führer anderer Planeten beunruhigt sind, weil sie sich dafür interessieren, welchen Weg die Europäische Union künftig einschlagen wird. Und deshalb sollten wir die Europäer und jene, die uns von außen beobachten, beruhigen. Kurios, im offiziellen Transkript der Rede fehlt genau die Stelle, an der Juncker von den Führern anderer Planeten redet. Französische Medien spekulieren nun, dass Juncker sich schlicht versprochen habe und die anderen Führer unseres Planeten meinte. Denn dass der EU-Kommissionspräsident an Außerirdische glaubt und das auch noch offiziell sagt, diese Geschichte scheint selbst in Brexit-Zeiten doch unglaubwürdig.
Speech by President Jean-Claude Juncker to the plenary session of the European Parliament on the result of the referendums in the United Kingdom, Brussels, 28 June 2016, translated from French and German. Mr. President, Madam Chair of the Council, honorable members, Mr. President, the Parliament is about to discuss the future of Europe and place the United Kingdom with Europe and the European Union. I had a lot of meetings this morning, but I decided to come to European Parliament because I believe that today, right now, my place is here at the heart of democracy. Our British friends have spoken by universal suffrage. The expression of will and political majority has to be respected by all. Democracy is democracy, and we must respect British democracy, and we view that has been expressed. The choice of the British people must be respected. European expression there was and consequences there are. So I'm asking for clarification, not immediately, because the British system is more complicated than one might think. But as soon as possible, there was a vote. Now there is hesitation. Lord Head, my friend, my brother, has drawn to his conclusions. He is a true Democrat. I would like to others to draw the conclusion of the expression of the British popular will. I will read and heard the Parliament of the President of the Parliamentary Groups with a few expressions have responded with the emotion to the result of the British referendum. Indeed, Europe is more than just a matter of the head. Yes, we must remain rational. But when we are sad, we should be allowed to say so much. I'm saddened by British vote and I make no secret of it. This isn't sentimentality. It is my profound conviction. I would have liked the United Kingdom to stay forever by our side. With that, it has decided otherwise. We must accept the consequences. The Prime Minister, whom I will be seeing later this morning, remains
Savoir que ceux qui nous observent de loin sont inquiets. J'ai vu et entendu et écouté plusieurs des dirigeants d'autres planètes qui sont très inquiets parce qu'ils s'interrogent sur la voie que l'Union européenne va poursuivre. Et donc il faut rassurer et les Européens et ceux qui nous observent de plus loin.
Hello, this is Hiroshi Hayashi, Hamama City, Japan. This is a sort of interview program of Home Pope Hellyer, the former Prime Minister of Defense and Force in Canada. And he said, alien life forms present among us. This is the story about it with my translation. Thank you very much.
It's great to have you with us on our show. Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Well, because I know that they are. They've been, as a matter of fact, they've been visiting our planet for thousands of years. And one of the cases that would interest you most, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to answer, is during the Cold War, 1961, there were about 50 UFOs in formation flying south from Russia to across Europe, and the Supreme Allied Commander was very concerned and about ready to press the panic button when they turned around and went back over the North Pole. They decided to do an investigation, and they investigated for 3 years, and they decided that with absolute certainty that 4 different species at least, had been visiting this planet for thousands of years. So we have a long history of UFOs, and of course there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb, and they're very concerned about that and the fact that we might use it again. And because the whole cosmos is a unity, and it affects not just us, but other people in the cosmos, they're very much afraid that we might be stupid enough to start using atomic weapons again, and this would be very bad for us and for them as well.
So no serious scientist has ever publicly confirmed evidence of an encounter with extraterrestrials. Why would scientists not confirm the facts if they exist?
I'm afraid they must go out of their way not to find. Because if they did, even 10% of the amount of research I've done in the last 8 years, they would be as convinced as I am. I mean, they could do it even faster. Might take them a little longer, a military background, but there are so many wonderful books that tell these stories, and they've been authenticated. The sightings have been authenticated by more than one witness, and also by radar, and they have landed in various places around the world, including Russia. There's a famous case there. I can't remember the name of the place, but it was widely reported at the time. A man wrote a book about it, and then the French bought the book rights so that it wouldn't be circulated around. There's just so much evidence. Take the time off to do a little bit of research and study. But people just are, some people are interested and will take the time and the others just say, oh, it's just fantasy. But since I've been public on this subject, I get probably 3 or 4 emails a week from all over the world, from people who have actually witnessed sightings, and some of them who have actually been on the ships, and some of them who have actually been transported to another planet. And so this information is not, it is top secret in a way that the governments aren't talking about it. But if you listen to the whistleblowers and the people who have worked in the industry and who know what is going on, there is just a lot of information out there, and it doesn't take very long to get your hands on it.
But see, the problem is that some people who report UFO sightings and alien abductions have been shown to make things up, and to make things up to be famous, to make money, or just for a prank. How do we tell fiction from a fact?
Well, you have to spend a lot of time trying to find, we used to say, separating the wheat from the chaff, and it takes a lot of effort. When I was minister, I got sighting reports, and when we checked them out, about 80%, about 8 out of 10, were not real. They were sights of Venus or plasma or a dozen other things, but there were 15 or 20% for which there was no explanation, and they were the genuine unidentified flying objects. These things go way back. One of the conferences I went to was in Las Vegas, was promoted by a chap who had written a book about crashes. And there were dozens and dozens and dozens of them, and many of them very, very well authenticated, so that it would be impossible to read all of that evidence and not to come to the conclusion that these vehicles were real.
Have you ever had your own encounter?
Not encounter with aliens, no. I have seen a UFO about 120 miles north of Toronto, over Lake Muskoka, where I have a cottage. And 2 years ago, last Canadian Thanksgiving, which is October, my wife decided she wanted to go out and look at the stars. So I'm not much of a night man, but I put on my cap and went out with her. And she looked into the eastern sky and said, "There's a star." And I turned around the other way and I said, "Oh, there's a much brighter one over here." And she looked, and it was. And we watched it until our necks almost broke for about 20 minutes. And it was definitely a UFO, because it could change position in the sky by 3 or 4 degrees in 3 or 4 seconds. And I checked out, there were no satellites that could do that. The space station wasn't going by, and it isn't able to move that fast anyway. And there was no other explanation except that it was the real thing. And 2 days later, I went down on the dock, got a comfortable chair, and watched it came back almost to the same spot and entertained me for as long as I could take it. And then I went back to the cottage. But it was very interesting, because it would drop down in the sky, and then it would roar back up, and then it would shift across a few degrees and do a circle and come back at a speed which, just astronomical speeds. As you know, they travel very, very fast.
So does it just look like a falling star that falls really quickly and then rises again? What does it look like?
Well, it just looked like a star.
It just looks like a star. Right.
And I don't know if you're a person who has ever read the Bible or not, but I think the Star of Bethlehem is God's flying saucers.
Mm-hmm. But you also tell me that people write you emails, 3 to 5 emails a week, and they've actually been abducted, or they have encounters with the aliens. Do they actually tell you what these aliens look like? I mean, everyone's interested. How would I know if I see an alien and if he abducts me?
Well, the first question you have to ask is, how many species are there? And I used to think there were, between 2 and 12. And Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who came to Toronto a few years ago and had dinner with us, agreed that it was somewhere between 2 and 12. But the latest reports that I've been getting from various sources are that there are about 80 different species. And some of them looked just like us, and they could walk down the street, and you wouldn't know if you ran, walked past one. And they're what we call the Nordic blondes, and also the tall whites, who were actually working with the United States Air Force in Nevada. They're able to get away with that. They had a couple of their ladies dressed as nuns went into Las Vegas to shop, and they weren't detected. And I have a friend who saw one of the men walking along the street, and somebody who would recognize that they were different, and he did. So there are those kind, and then there are the short grays, as they're called, and they're the ones that you see in most of the cartoons. Have very, very slim arms and legs, and they're very short, just a little over 5 feet, and they have a great big torso and a great big head and great big brown eyes. But they're different species, so you have to know that they're different species, and it's and know that they're all different. Mm-hmm. So if you saw the short gray, you'd certainly know that there was something up that you'd never seen before. But if you saw one of the Nordic blondes, well, you'd probably say, "Oh, I wonder if she's from Denmark or somewhere."
So this species that you're describing, are they all different in terms of nice and mean? Are some of them nice and benevolent? Are others nasty? Or how are they? Are they good to people on Earth, or are they here to harm them?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because they have different agendas. And maybe all of us on Earth should have the same agenda, but you couldn't say maybe that Russia and China and the United States all had the same agenda at every turn, because they don't. And I would say that nearly all are benign, they're benevolent, they want to help us. There may be one or two species which do not. And that's one of the things I'm investigating at the moment, is to see who they are and what they're up to and what their agendas really are.
All right, we're talking to Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, who says extraterrestrial life forms exist and are present on Earth. We'll talk more about what they are and why they're here after a short break. Stay with us. And we're back with Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, to talk about extraterrestrial life forms. Great to have you back. So these extraterrestrial creatures, where did they come from, and how did they get here to Earth?
They come from various places. For a long while, I only knew about ones who came from different star systems. The Pleiades and Reta Reticula and several other star systems, but in the last few months I have met people who have made me aware of that there are some in our star system, and that there are actually extraterrestrials who live on a planet called Andromeda, which is one of the moons of Saturn, and that there are others on Venus and some on Mars, and that they may be interacting between themselves. I suspect that they are, because there is what of these people, and they have rules. For example, one of the rules is that they don't interfere in our affairs unless they're invited to. And that's one of the reasons probably that we haven't seen more of them until very recently. And so
but what do you mean? There are a lot of people who want to interact with them. There are a lot of people who actually want to see them and know who they are. What, they need a special invitation to interact with us? What does it mean? They don't want to interfere into our affairs.
They want to tell us how to run our affairs. They have accepted the fact this is our planet and that we have the right to run it. But they're very, very concerned. They don't think we're good stewards of our planet. We're not. We're clear-cutting our forests, and we're polluting our rivers and our lakes, and we're dumping sewage in the oceans, and we're doing all sorts of things which are not what good stewards of their homes should be doing, and they don't like that, and they've made it very clear. And as a matter of fact, they have given us a warning.
How?
And this has come from more than one source.
How have they made it clear? What have they done?
They have talked to people. One of the chaps I talked to about a month ago was interacting with them in 1974, he and his brother in Peru, and they were taken to Andromeda, teleported, and they were told what the people there think, and that we're really wrecking our planet, and in fact that something dreadful is going to happen to it if we don't smarten up and change our ways. We spend too much time fighting each other. We spend too much money on military expenditures and not enough on feeding the poor and looking after the homeless and the sick. And that we are polluting our waters and our air, and that we're playing around with these exotic weapons, thermonuclear weapons and atomic weapons, which have such a devastating effect both on our Earth and on other areas in the cosmos, and they don't like that. And that's the reason they would like to work with us to teach us better ways, but only, I think, with our consent. And they work through individuals, and they try and pick out individuals who won't be frightened to death of them, because they can give you quite a fright. One of the cases I'm familiar with was the tall whites in Nevada, where the United States Airmen working with them, were just frightened to death of them. And one, Charles Hall, rescued the daughter of one of the high-up people in the tall whites, and as a result became very good friends with the mother. And as soon as they could trust each other, they had a wonderful relationship. And he wrote a book about it. It's called Millennial Hospitality. Millennial Hospitality. And it tells you how you go through these stages of being scared out of your wits. But then when you establish a trust and a working relationship, why you can have the same relationship, same kind of relationship that you would have with someone here on Earth.
But here's what I'm thinking. If you're outing their presence, which is clearly not what they want since they're hiding, why aren't they so afraid of, why aren't you afraid of repercussions? Because you're obviously stating that they're here among us, and you're telling me all the species that exist.
That they are here among us, and I'm not afraid, because in most cases, as far as technology is concerned, they're light years ahead of us, and we have learned a lot of things from them. A lot of the things that we use today, we got from them. Lead lights and microchips and Kevlar vests and all sorts of things that we got from their technology, and we could get a lot more too, especially in the fields of medicine and agriculture, if we would go about it peacefully. But I think maybe some of our people are more interested in getting their military technology, and I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong-headed, and that's one of the things that we're going to have to change, because we're going to have to work together.
Talking about
all of us, everywhere on the planet.
You mentioned military technology and swapping technologies and barters between aliens and people in American government. I want to ask you, as a former Minister of Defense of Canada, is interstellar war a possibility? Should we be creating a Star Wars force to defend ourselves from possible invasion or something like that?
Well, I think it's a possibility, but it's a possibility especially if we shoot down every UFO that comes in our airspace without asking who they are or what they want. And right from the beginning, we started scrambling planes and trying to shoot them down, but their technology was superior enough that we weren't able to get away with it. Certainly not for a long while. And during that period of time, they could have taken us over without any trouble if they'd wanted to. So I think we have to, rather than develop our own Star Wars, Earth Star Wars, to protect ourselves against them, that we should work with the benign species, who are the vast majority, and work together and rely largely on them, of course, and cooperate so that we would be contributing something at the same time. But I don't think there's any point in us developing a galactic force that would tempt us to go out on our own and get into mischief, which is one of the things I think some of them are concerned about.
But what do you expect to happen if people start to believe in alien existence? Because things are definitely going to change. Our lives aren't going to be the same anymore.
Well, I hope that's the case. I hope that's the case, and I'm all for full disclosure, and I'm going to push very hard for full disclosure in the book I'm writing, and to give some reasons for it, things that we really have to know and have a right to know, and that our future as a species, and here I mean, all of the species in the world, are potentially at risk if we don't figure out what's going on and work together to try and make life more amenable for all of us.
But
and to work with our neighbors from other planets as well.
But still, I'm thinking to myself, if they've been here for such a long time, as you say, and they're interested in helping humanity, as you say, why is our world such a mess? I mean, if you want to help someone, you just help someone. You don't wait for someone to invite you to help that someone, no?
Well, it's something that I think parents can sometimes say to their children, this is what you should do. But that doesn't mean the children are going to do it, does it? Because the cosmos is based on free choice. And we're given the option of making mistakes, of making wrong choices. And I guess what bothers some of us is we've made too many wrong choices and not enough right choices. So we're going to have to start switching our priorities and stop spending so much time and effort and weapons to kill each other or to dominate each other, and spending a lot more time on how to help each other to have a better society and life which is healthier, and where the health care is better, and where the food distribution is better, and where the air is cleaner and the water is cleaner, and all of those things that are waiting to be done if we just get together and row, as we say, rowboat, row in the right direction, the same direction. And it's possible, but it's a tall order, and so far we haven't done it. My thesis will be that we have to do it, and we have to start doing it right away.
Thank you so much for this interesting interview and insight on extraterrestrial life. That was Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense. He says aliens exist and live among us on Earth. That's all the time we have for today. I will see you in the next edition of Sophie & Co.
To our esteemed Honorable Paul Hellyer of Canada, we would give you 20 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak, and thank you, Steve, for the invitation. My name, as I said, was Paul Hellyer. I'm a former Minister of National Defence for Canada. I served in 3 governments during a total of 23 and a half years as a Member of Parliament. Although as Minister of National Defense, I had sighting reports of UFOs. I was too busy to be concerned about them at the time because I was trying to unify the Army, Navy, and Air Force into a single Canadian Defense Force. And that itself was a kind of battle to the finish. So this was the United States Air Force General. I accept the invitation of Victor Vigiani, who's over here somewhere, and his cohort Mike Bird, to speak to a symposium at the University of Toronto. And I said, UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. That gave me the dubious distinction of being the first person of cabinet rank in the G8. A document was prepared which concluded that at least 4 species had been visiting Earth for thousands of years. And this is my own view at this stage as well. So, morning, finally say that there are live ETs on Earth at this present time, and at least 2 of them probably working with the United States government. The other species that I learned about not too long ago was called the tall whites. And this is when Paula Harris broke the story just a few years ago. And through her good offices, I had the
Cosmonaut Viktor Anashev commented on a UFO sighting that occurred while en route to the Salyut 6 space station in April of 1979 as follows. It followed us during half of our orbit. We observed it on the light side, and when we entered the shadow side, it disappeared completely. It was an engineered structure made from some type of metal approximately 40 meters long with inner hulls. The object was narrow here and wider here, and inside there were openings. Some places had projections like small wings. The object stayed very close to us. We photographed it, and our photos showed it to be 23 to 28 meters away. 宇宙飛行士ビクトル・アファナシェフは1979年4月ソリュート6号宇宙船へ行く途中 UFO の目撃について次のようにコメントしている。それは私たちが周回する約半分の間、私たちについてきました。私たちはそれを昼の間に見ました。そして地球の影に入ったとき、それは完全に消えてしまいました。それは技術加工された構造をしていて、何かの金属で作られていました。内部構造を持った長さが40メートルくらいのものでした。その物体は幅の広いところと狭いところがあり、その中に隙間がありました。いくつかの場所には翼のような突起物がありました。その物体は私たちに大変近づいてきました。私たちは写真によれば23から28メートルの距離からその写真を撮ったことになります。宇宙飛行士のニール・アームストロングは1999年10月次のように表現しています。証拠はありませんが、私たちが入手可能な最高の情報による推測によれば、次のような結論に達しています。つまり、他の知的生命体がそこかしこ多くの場所に存在しています。同じく宇宙飛行士のスコット・カーペンターは次のように証言しています。宇宙飛行士が宇宙で一人でいたことは一度もありません。常に UFO による連続的な監視がありました。カーペンターは1962年5月24日、周回中に UFO の写真を撮影している。NASA は未だにその写真を公表していない。アポロ17号ミッションの司令官であったユージン・サーナンは1973年ロサンゼルス・タイムズの記事の中に次のように書いている。私は UFO についてそれを尋ねられたことがあり、私は 公にこう言ってきました。彼らは誰か他の人たちであり、どこかの他の文明の人たちであると思いましたと。Evidence Aliena, a website in France, writes about the Apollo 13 mission as follows. The questions are so many, but to see these images we can guess and something and certainly take note that up there, surely, the Apollo 13 astronauts were not alone. フランスのエビデンザリエナウェブサイトは次のように書いています。アポロ13号ミッションについては疑問は多いが、これらの写真を見たところいろいろ考えられるが、ただ一つはっきりしていることは、そこにいたのはアポロ13号の宇宙船の3人だけではなかったということであると。Hiroshi Hayashi, Hamama City, Japan. エビデンザリエナウェブサイトは次のように書いています。アポロ13号計画はアポロ11号、12号に続いて第3回目の月面着陸を目的としたアポロ計画であった。1970年の4月11日にその月面ミッションはフロリダのケネディ宇宙センターにて発射されたが、その発射から2日と半分経ったところで酸素タンクが爆発し、月面着陸はキャンセルされた。その爆発により宇宙船そのものが激しく損傷を受けたため、3人の宇宙飛行士たちは月面着陸船のアクエリアスへ移動し、月面に着陸するための手段として使われる予定だった宇宙船を機関船として使用せざるを得なくなった。船内の熱がなくなる、飲み水が不足する、二酸化炭素除去装置の修理をしなければならないなどのかなりの困難にもかかわらず、宇宙飛行士たちは4月1日地球に帰還した。 YouTube の利用者が NASA の記録写真の中から興味深い写真を見つけた。それにはアポロ13号の近くを飛んでいる未確認飛行物体が示されていた。ここにその写真の出どころを明記しておくが、その物体を見るためには明度を上げ画像を明るくする必要がある。以下が NASA の公式画像である。画像8528ストリートキャップ1による撮影写真。 ここにお見せするのはアポロ13号宇宙船の周りに位置する人工物に見える物体である。このサイトのスコット・ワリングによれば、エイリアンの宇宙船は何か必要なことがあれば割り込んでくることができる範囲でアポロ13号の近くを飛行しているように見えるとのことである。次の写真の中ではもう一機の光る物体の前面に固体の物体を見ることができる。この物体はアポロ13号に事故を引き起こした謎の物体なのだろうか。アポロ13号の真のミッションは何だったのか。多分誰かによって禁止区域になっていた場所にアポロ13号が着陸を試みていたのではなかったのか。またそれ以来私たち人間はなぜ月面に着陸していないのだろうか。エイリアンの拒否にあったのか。疑問は多いが、これらの写真を見たところいろいろ考えられるが、ただ一つはっきりしていることは、そこにいたのはアポロ13号の宇宙船の3人だけではなかったということである。繰り返します。ただ一つはっきりしていることは、そこにいたのはアポロ13号の宇宙船の3人だけではなかったということである。
The idea of any explosion in space by any Earth government was not acceptable to the extraterrestrials, and that has been demonstrated over and over.
And what's the consequence? How is that different?
I ran into them. We mentioned an incident which I later confirmed. A spacecraft went to the rescue of Apollo 13, and they accompanied Apollo 13 on their voyage around the moon and back to Earth. And on 2 occasions they thought they might have to transfer the crew to their spacecraft, but they saw them safely back to the Earth. People were interested in the extraterrestrial technology, very much so. I am Lauren Ross Diedrichsen, Colonel, USA, retired. I got a Bachelor of Science degree, and then the Air Force sent me to the Stanford Business School to study management, and then promptly assigned me to Washington, D.C., and I served in the Chief of Staff's office shortly for orientation, And then they put me into the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, where I became responsible for maintaining the inventory of the accountability of the nuclear weapons stockpile, and involved in the security and the, you might say, auditing the manufacturing facilities and the storage facilities for all the nuclear weapons in the U.S.
アメリカ空軍大佐ロス・デドリクソンの証言。私は AEC、つまり原子力エネルギー委員会の議長と国防省の間の軍の連絡委員会の上級スタッフでした。私は陸軍だけではなく海軍、空軍、民間機関のほか CIA や国家安全機関、さらには私が開拓した他の機関の人たちとも知り合いになりました。そうした時代の間、私の職務の一つが核兵器の安全性をチェックするためのすべての核兵器施設を訪問するチームに同行することでした。そういう中、核兵器の貯蔵場所やいくつかの製造施設の上に現れた UFO の報告を私たちは手に入れていました。そしてそういうことが連続的に続いていました。核兵器の上を飛ぶ UFO の飛行は大変深刻な問題として取り上げられていました。資料11を添付しますので、それを見てください。事実、そうした問題は目撃者が故意にそうした情報を流したりすると、あまりにも大きな政治問題、あるいは外交問題を巻き込むことになりましたので、大変深刻な問題として取り上げられていたわけです。レーダーに UFO が捕捉されたようなほとんどのケースにおいては、航空機が UFO の飛行を妨害するためスクランブルがかけられました。それは私たちの政府からの攻撃的な反応ということになります。よく知られた事件としては1952年の7月の事件があります。その事件の時は私は光を放つディスクタイプのクラフトを見ました。その事件の後、フェルト海軍大将の下で核兵器実行計画の選択的指揮権のポストの責任者として連合司令官に就任しました。私は SAC 作戦のもと、ノーラッド、つまり北米防空総司令部とも連絡を取り合いました。そして核兵器の使用に関する作戦計画にも携わりました。他にも2例、私は UFO と核兵器に関する事件について知っています。2例のうち先の1例というのは1961年だったと思いますが、太平洋で核兵器を爆発させた時のことです。それは ET たちによって引き起こされたものですが、驚くべきものでした。なぜならその時数時間にわたってどんな場合も太平洋上で無線通信が途絶えてしまったからです。電磁層にまで影響を与えたところから、外惑星人たちがその爆発実験に関心を持っていたことには間違いありません。事実、ET たちの宇宙船は磁場汚染が理由で航行が不可能になったからです。2つ目の事件は1970年代の終わりか1980年代の初めに起きたものです。その時私たちは核兵器を月まで運び、そこで科学的な測定のための爆発をさせるつもりでしたが、これは外惑星人にとっては受け入れがたいことでした。 ET たちはその武器が月へ到着する前に破壊してしまいました。地球のどんな政府による宇宙での 核兵器の爆発は外惑星人にとっては受け入れがたいものです。そのことは私たちが何度も何度も宇宙へ送り届けた核兵器がことごとく破壊されてしまったことでも示されていることです。繰り返します。地球のどんな政府による宇宙での核兵器の爆発は外惑星人にとっては受け入れがたいものです。そのことは私たちが何度も何度も宇宙へ送り届けた核兵器がことごとく破壊されてしまったことでも示されていることです。アポロ13号は無事地球に帰還しましたが、その背後には外惑星人たちの協力があったからです。繰り返します。アポロ13号は無事地球に帰還しましたが、その背後には外惑星人たちの協力があったからです。
But they were there, they were illuminated, they were quite visible. A spacecraft went to the rescue of Apollo 13, and they accompanied Apollo 13 on their voyage around the moon and back to Earth. And on 2 occasions, they thought they might have to transfer the crew to their spacecraft, but they saw them safely back to the Earth. People were interested in extraterrestrial technology, very much so. In fact, that was the time when Area 51 became notorious.
Stephen M. Greer, M.D., wrote in his book Unacknowledged as follows. As I stated, the ETs have made it very clear that the entry ticket for human civilization to become interplanetary is first and foremost to be civilized, to live together peacefully, to renounce weapons of mass destruction, and to go out into space, free up weapon systems with a consciousness of universal peace. スティーブン・ M. グリアー MD は次長 Unacknowledged の中で次のように述べています。 私がすでに述べたように、外惑星人は次のことを明確にしている。つまり、人間文明が外惑星人になるためには、まず最初にして、かつ最大に、皆が平和に一緒に暮らすために、人間自身が文明化することである。そのためにも、大量破壊兵器を放棄し、宇宙の平和を守るという意識を持って、宇宙に武器システムを持ち込んではならないということである。War in space to replace war on Earth is not evolution, but cosmic madness. A world that's united in fear is worse than one divided by ignorance. It is now time for the great leap into future, a leap that moves us out of fear and ignorance and into an unbroken era of universal peace. This is our destiny. It will be ours just as soon as we choose it. 地球での戦争を置き換えるための宇宙での戦争を進歩あるいは進化と考えてはいけない。狂気の沙汰である。このような恐れに結びついた世界は無知でバラバラになっている個人よりたちが悪い。私たち人類は未来に向かって大きく飛躍する時である。つまり恐れと無知から抜け出て宇宙平和という未体験の時代に突入する。それが私たちが目指すべき運命である。そしてそれは私たちがそれを選択するや否や今すぐ私たちのものとなる。